all books of fiqh, you would find that usually they devote chapters of the books of salat on congregational salat. Why? Because congregational salats or prayers are so many. So we have the most important of them all is Friday prayer. We have the great gatherings of the Muslims, as in the case of Eid prayers. We also have the prayers of the eclipse. We have the prayers of asking Allah Azza wa Jal for rain. We have funeral prayers. All of these are done in congregation. And hence, it is important to know that Islam highlights unity. Islam highlights congregation, specifically in the things that the Prophet ﷺ had instructed us and told us about. So, congregational prayer is important in Islam to the extent that the Prophet ﷺ told us that the prayer of a person in congregation is 27 times better than his prayer alone. And in another narration, 25 times. So, praying in congregation is more rewarding. And walking to the masjid with every step in normal prayers, you gain a good deed, a bad deed is erased, and one level in Jannah is registered for you. So imagine how many steps you will take to reach the masjid. And this is only to highlight that a lot of the Muslims do not pray on time, and those who pray on time fail to pray in the masjid. Now, the Prophet ﷺ highlighted the importance of praying in the masjid. Allah Azza wa Jal ordered the believers when they are at war to pray in congregation. So imagine, we are at the front lines and the enemy is in front of us, and we're anticipating a mortar shot or bomb or shell, a bullet here or there, a grenade that may fall upon us. Yet in this state of fear, Allah Azza wa Jal has mandated upon the believers to play Salatul Khawf, to pray in congregation, as mentioned in Surah An-Nisa, Ayah 102. So the believers must come and pray behind the Prophet ﷺ, and when the Prophet goes for ruku' and sujood, only those behind him go in ruku' and sujood, and the second line, they watch and anticipate for any attempt of the enemy to attack. Once the Prophet stands up for the second rak'ah, the first line goes behind and the front line goes in front, and they take turns so that no one is neglectful. Everyone or the whole army is anticipating whatever the enemy is going to do. Even in times of fear, Allah mandates upon the men to pray in congregation. And this is in the Quran. As for the Sunnah, the Prophet ﷺ clearly stated the importance of praying in congregation in many hadiths. The best well-known hadith to everyone is the hadith of the blind man. A blind man comes to the Prophet ﷺ from the masjid, and I don't have anyone suitable for me to lead me to prayer. So is there any excuse for me not to pray in congregation? The Prophet asked him, alayhi salatu wasalam, do you hear the adhan? He said, yes. So the Prophet said, answer it. There is no excuse for you. Subhanallah. A blind man who doesn't have a proper guide is instructed and ordered to attend the salat in the masjid. If he is living within the vicinity of the masjid, hearing the adhan is not related to loudspeakers, because this is not what was intended. Hearing the adhan, if it was given in ideal and normal cases, such as when um, a person lives in a village, there's no concrete buildings, there are no double glazed glasses, windows, and the muezzin goes on top of the masjid and calls the adhan as loud as he can without microphones. This means that if you live within the vicinity of a kilometer probably, or a little bit less, a little bit more, then you must and you're obliged to pray in the masjid. Also, there is the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, where he indicated that the most burdensome prayer, the most hard prayer upon the hypocrites are Fajr and Isha. And had they known the great reward in it, they would have come to it crawling on their hands and knees. So the Prophet made it a characteristic of the hypocrites not to attend the congregational prayer. Likewise, when we come to the hadith of the Prophet ﷺ intending to burn the houses of those who do not pray, the Prophet tells us ﷺ that I almost directed one of the Muslims to call for the adhan and iqamah, and I would appoint someone to lead the prayer. And I would go with men and piles of wood to the houses of those who do not attend the congregational prayer, and I would burn their houses to the ground. Had it not been for the women and children, I would have done so. So again, this is a very serious issue that Muslims do not pay attention to. And the hadith of Abdullah ibn Mas'ud, may Allah be pleased with him, where he says that there we were, and only a person who was well known as a hypocrite would stay away from the congregational prayers. So among the companions, it was a sign of hypocrisy not to attend the congregational prayer.